Star Wars. You know it. Pew pew, lightsabers, and one of the richest tapestries for stories out there. With the new revived focus and need around Star Wars films, we have a new era, a new journey, and a new future that hinges all on one thing. Welcome to Star Wars Uplink, your place for everything Star Wars gaming, the TV shows, and the movies. Let's jump in.
Just you reconsider playing that message for him.
It all started with a lunch. At least that's what they told us.
Mm-hmm.
It was, several months ago that we really started hearing rumblings. Daisy Ridley posted on her Instagram a story of her at Lucasfilm Limited. And everyone's like, interesting. And she's
Just
like,
lunch,
oh,
guys.
it's just lunch. So nothing's happening over here. And then at Star Wars Celebration, we get the full confirmation. Daisy Ridley came on stage and everyone's like, oh my gosh, Daisy Ridley, Ray, whoa!
Did we call it or did we call it?
We called it.
Yeah.
Called it months ago. It's not surprising. We all had a hunch. And I think one of the very interesting things here, we have some details around Damon Lindelof's story because he was originally writing it. And there were some creative differences. It wasn't quite holding up to the standards that Lucasfilm wanted the movie to really hold up to. And I think one of those reasons is because it all tied around an original character. And according to some reporting, we see that with the loss of Damon Lindelof, they also lost that actress who was originally going to play the main character here. And I just find that really fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're going back to, I kind of think this is what most people expected them to do with whatever next movie it was to continue the story of Rey and crew.
Right. Yeah. It's like the rumblings were initially that, this is going to be a whole new thing. We're kind of done with the Skywalkers. We're going to move on.
Yeah.
And now it's like, you know what? Maybe let's just fall back on that plan and let's just keep going with Rey. We have a good thing going here.
Wait a second. People like this Rey character.
We lost our one guy that had a great idea, but let's go back to this. This will be great.
And I think it's not in a bad way, but I think it's the safe choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this is the right choice for where Star Wars is right now.
Really? Why do you say that?
I just think from overall the themes that they're trying to play with and the characters that they've set up with and the background that we now know for this, which is the rebuilding of the Jedi Order with Rey rebuilding it. I think it is the right choice for Lucasfilm to play it safe right now. So Star Wars goes on longer. From a business perspective, they need movies because the TV shows don't bring in anything.
I think the thing that concerns me most with this course of action is that, once again, we're not seeing a clear path. We're only seeing Rey's going to rebuild the Jedi Order.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally, I feel like that's all we're going to ever get. That's all I don't know.
Are you just trying to wondering what the next step is for that?
I'm wondering where they're going with it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if they know the 3 movies next, Yeah.
I don't know if they want to do that. I think this movie might just want to be setting up this new era because this will be the furthest into the future around the Star Wars saga that we've seen. They're also going way back into the past with this 25,000 years before the prequel trilogy takes place. And then we're seeing Dave Filoni flesh out that middle area between the sequels and the original trilogy. And we'll get into that later on in the episode. But we've got all these different eras, and I can totally see them just kind of spreading out the gamut. We know the Old Republic is now an official era because we didn't know that was an official era before. You have just a lot of different pieces here, and I don't know if they actually want to commit to a trilogy yet. I think they may just say, okay, this is the entry into this new era.
Interesting. So this is kind of like the Rogue One of whatever new era.
This is like a new hope,
gonna...
really. This is them setting up what is Star Wars now. We have this new Jedi Order. And I think the key piece of this is John Boyega is rumored to actually be reprising his role as Finn here. This honestly is such a strange thing because John,
I feel like he was pretty adamant about not coming back.
He was. And apparently the reports are that he buried the hatchet with Kathleen Kennedy. Witch's movie star thing of like, let's write you a really nice check, give you a crisp handshake, and say we're sorry.
Yeah.
That's at least what I hear that as. But like, John Boyega got screwed over with with that sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
He was set up, what we all saw as kind of like being this main character of like, what does it look like to have a stormtrooper turned resistance leader, honestly. And that's so fascinating because there's so much depth there, but they didn't play it with that at all. And in The Rise of Skywalker, John Boyega's character of Finn became the Rey shouting machine.
Right! Right! Right!
Yep.
He lost all of his like unique qualities in his own journey to just really like.
He's just a Rey lackey.
Yeah. And I think the most interesting thing there was something that we all like assumed from The Force Awakens of like, is he a Force sensitive? But they set it up in such like an underwhelming reveal that it just didn't quite make sense with the story.
Yeah, interesting times for Star Wars. So it's definitely seemed like they had a totally different direction for this movie. And now, like you said, they're going with the safe route. I get it, and I'll definitely see it, but I think I'm going to keep my expectations kind of low.
Yeah. See, I'm really torn of being super excited with this movie. One, it's got the Peaky Blinders writer that's taking lead on the writing, which I think is hopeful. And it sounds like they're nuking the entire slate when it comes down to it. Rey building up the new Jedi Order is fascinating. We've talked about this before of like, why would she want to do that? She doesn't seem like set up in the sequel trilogy to really like want to do that at all. Like she really buries the lightsabers, which almost seemed like a very final decision there. And it didn't seem like with the books, her collecting them, she didn't seem to really like learn a whole lot from those. I mean, she did.
I mean, frankly,
her
she
actions.
just has a whole lot of natural talent, apparently.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's anyone to lead a new Order of Jedi, sure, you got all the Force powers.
But she also has like the foundations with those books. But I wonder if like the introduction of this really like the rise of the Jedi, like the birth of the Jedi, what James Mangold is going to be directing, is going to like fuel some of that like discovery. Like maybe Rey is going back to kind of sum this up. Like I really want Rey to look at the Jedi like Luke did and discover that the Jedi were failures and take the failures of the Jedi and bring them forward into a way that makes them sustainable.
Yeah.
But also sets up this next big bad that isn't building another Death Star.
Seriously.
Do something. I think the High Republic does a very interesting, a really good job with like, what is a bad guy set in this unique period? But also maybe do something more unique. What is it? Are they chasing down the remnants, trying to really get rid of what the First Order was, what Palpatine was setting up? Is that the whole journey there? Is Rey going to be trying to dive deeper into what the origins of the Jedi were to fuel her teachings of the new Jedi Order?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to play around with here.
And with all the destruction of all the empires that have come through and wiped out all the Jedi stuff, it really seems like there is a clean slate for her new order. Yeah. That it could literally be anything now.
It could be. And it's so soon after the sequel trilogy. Like, the original trilogy, after the original trilogy, you're like, we have to have the original trilogy cast in here now, right? They don't have any of those expectations anymore.
No. I feel like they could play this in a really interesting way. But I also don't hold that expectation at all.
Because you have to have the story arc. Star Wars is all about the hero's journey. How can you set up the hero's journey? Maybe it's Finn. Finn could definitely be the Padawan in this situation. Could be the beta.
Yeah.
But it also takes place 15 years after the Rise of Skywalker. So he'd probably already been doing that this entire time. So maybe he is the assistant to Rey, or is taking on this completely new perspective.
Still seems
I
like
hope
he
he
would
has
be,
his own story, though.
Yeah. That's what I was about to say. It's like I feel like he would. He's still in this position where we could definitely see him still as Rey's lackey. You know, like he's just following Rey around and doing her bidding and whatnot. It's like no, we would like to see some.
Yeah, Finn's definitely in Rey's shadow. And I hope to see him like really come out of that and have his own story arc.
Yeah, he needs it.
And I think there's a lot going on there. Like, he's so fascinating. Someone who like was raised, because he was taken from his family and raised in the Empire and left that. The Empire was his family. And he left that thing to escape, to really get a new leash on life. And they didn't play around with that at all in the sequel trilogy. I would have loved to see this moment of like, in any of the movies, a remorse for killing his fellow family instead of this glee of like, oh man, I know how to do this because I was the janitor and we're going to explode the Starkiller base and kill all my brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
I would have appreciated some level of like remorse with that. And even with like the Rise of Skywalker with the whole other group of Stormtrooper people, there wasn't that story either. I want some of this depth, and I hope that they give it to him because John Boyega definitely deserves it, and he's got the acting chops to pull it off. So we have all of these different pieces here. And then we've got, we mentioned it earlier, the Mandoverse movie, really. So Dave Filoni is like really taking the charge. Both Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau have been deepening the lore around Star Wars. Dave Filoni, since Clone Wars happened, has he been really like deepening the lore around Star Wars and what he all did in the Clone Wars, as well with Rebels, the animated stuff, Bad Batch, the Tales of the Jedi, like all of these different things that he's done. And then it was announced at Star Wars Celebration that he'll be directing his own live action movie. And so the first season of Mando, they really showed what Star Wars can bring to the small screen and show how you can have the level of quality of the movies on a small serialized stage. And I really like that. I think they did a really good job, especially in the first season where they had references and you brought like different pieces in. They leaned a little too heavily on the cameos in the second season, I would say. And I think that's what really hurt Book of Boba Fett is the cameos, especially as much as I love those Mando episodes in Book of Boba Fett. I think it really took away from Boba Fett's story. Yeah. But they needed it to tell the story that they're trying to tell, which is ultimately lead to this Rebels season 5 almost.
Pretty much, yeah.
Because you've got Mando that has built this up with the Mandalorians, Ahsoka showing up, Luke Skywalker, his attempts at the new Jedi Order, and all of these different pieces. You have mentions of Thrawn, who's a big member of the struggles of the Ghost Crew in Rebels. And he's going to be the next big bad. And I think he is so deserving of that in this era. And I think what we're going to see in Ahsoka is setting up the ultimate struggle of what we can say and expect and to see from Dave Filoni's movie.
So during Star Wars Celebration, it seemed like we didn't get any actual information about what this whole Dave Filoni movie is going to be about.
It was like the title of probably the document that they have, which is Dave Filoni film. And then what other details did we get?
Pretty much just that it's gonna kind of close out all of his series and workings. It seems
the Dave Filoni verse is probably gonna come to a close in this show or in this movie. So that makes me wonder of like, I hope that they're setting this out a little bit further. Hopefully, we're getting the Daisy Ridley movie first, probably from what we hear 2025 is what we can expect that. And then we get James Mangold's series or his movie, which I think kind of makes sense because he is prioritizing that over other projects. So it could be something like a 2027 release date. Yeah. And then we get Dave Filoni's.
In like 2030.
Or 2029 probably if they're doing the every 2-year thing, which I think makes sense for Star Wars. But ideally, probably from what we've heard, it seems like they're thinking of Dave Filoni's movie as the second movie. So we're going to go this way, this way, this way. And I think it kind of makes sense. I just hope we get more of the stories with the Ahsoka crew, with the Skeleton crew, with the Mando crew.
It is true. There's a lot coming up still that it all ties in together.
Yeah.
And so hearing that this is going to be like the cap of it all, it's like, ooh, maybe not too soon.
Push that out a little bit longer.
Yeah.
I really like what you guys doing. I mean, season 3 was really messy, sloppy, and I would say poorly written, but I had a great time watching it.
Yeah. Everything that's been coming out for Star Wars is just fun. Like, it's just fun stuff that we get to watch.
Yeah, except for Obi-Wan.
Aside from that, been having a great time. So it's going to be really interesting to see the timelines that we get.
Yeah. I hope we get like at least 5, maybe 6 seasons of Mando. I think that would be a good like amount. And I don't think like Ahsoka is going to get us far enough along into the Thrawn villain side of things to really make sense for them to cap it in that movie in 2027. I still think no matter what Ahsoka does, and I hope they don't kill off Thrawn and
seriously,
like he does, like maybe at the end of the season they find Thrawn and then we get maybe announcements for season 2 of Ahsoka. And we keep on pushing that out again because I think Thrawn is the perfect person to bring in what ultimately becomes the First Order. He's the reason that the Empire really moved along as well as it did.
Yeah.
And he's the reason it fell because he got taken out of the picture. So if he is the heir to the Empire, which he has a book in Legends called Heir to the Empire. And in that Ahsoka trailer, they talk about him as the heir to the Empire. I think if he is going to be the heir of the Empire, he's going to have decisions made that ultimately come to use the flailing New Republic to take advantage of that and start building the pieces of what the First Order is. And he's probably going to be involved with Palpatine in some way.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I could see him. I don't know if I want to see him like infiltrating, because that's not the warrior way. But I definitely think we're going to see either a collapsing of the Shadow Council or his strategic use of the Shadow Council.
Or just taking it over.
Well, and like kind of dispersing them into what the New Republic is.
Yeah. He's almost like, obviously he's got Pelion in place of him. So he feels like the Shadow Empire isn't
it's serious enough.
Yeah.
Like these are little kids.
Yeah. They're playing with their toys across the galaxy.
Let them play in their little sandbox together. Meanwhile, Daddy Thrawn over here is really actually getting down to business.
He's doing the Lord's work over here, bringing like the rise of this new order. He's in the deep wild space. He is a freaking genius strategist. He's utilizing this like disappearance to his advantage, and nobody knows about him. The Shadow Council knows about him, but not really anything else. Ahsoka knows about Thrawn, but not really anybody else.
Yeah.
If you ask Djarin who Thrawn is, he'd be like, I don't know. Like Moff Gideon is his like interaction with that side of things.
Yeah.
And Moff Gideon is the big bad in his world. Similar with Bo-Katan. Like I feel like she is the same in that space. Wouldn't even think to consider Thrawn, or might not even know Thrawn. And he's going to use that to his advantage. Ezra's out of the picture.
Yep.
We know that he's been cast. We've seen him in the trailer.
Yes, we have.
But we don't know what he's doing, where he is, what steps he's taking against Thrawn, and how Thrawn is going to use Ezra, because we know that's going to be the case.
I mean, he can't not. Anyhow, I feel like seeing all this and hearing about this movie, and then it actually gives me some hope that there is a direction.
Yeah. If they know that movie's going to end things, they have to know where all of this is going to end.
They got to know the end, and then they can work backwards.
Yeah.
Which is interesting that we got the season of Mandalorian that we did.
Yeah,
and
because they did not know the end.
It kind of makes sense because they were still working things out and still figuring out how they were truly gonna weave all this together.
Pedro Pascal also, his schedule wasn't free enough to actually be on set for any of the show, which is why we don't have his helmet reveal. So that threw a wrench in their storytelling plans too. So it makes sense that they know where they need to go, but they can't move it forward in the ways they need to until season 4, which we have confirmed. Apparently it's already written, and who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, it really seems like we're going into a new era of Mandalorian in and of itself.
Yeah.
I mean, every season seems to progress some way, but now Moff Gideon is allegedly dead, and we're left with Din and Grogu having a little kumbaya in their new little cottage.
The independent contractor of the New Republic.
Yeah. So, should be interesting. Should be very interesting.
Yeah, there is so much to dive into here. What are some of the things that you want to see this movie take place? Like, we have Mando Din and Grogu, or Djarin and Din Djarin and Din Grogu.
The Dins. We can call them the Dins.
Yeah. They're going to go off on their little adventures. It seems like they're definitely scaling back to what really made Mandalorian so great.
Which is good.
Yeah, which I really appreciate. I love the Western inspiration there. They'll probably run into Boba Fett more, and hopefully Cobb Vanth. And we hopefully see more of that smaller scale intrigue.
And if they're working with the Alliance, what is it?
Yeah, Rangers of the New Republic or something like that.
Yeah, if they're working with them more, then it's likely that we're going to be seeing our Rebels cast interact with them.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
because we see Zeb in season 3.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a very good point.
So it's more of the interweaving that we're seeing with Mandalorian as like that anchor of everyone else's stories sort of thing. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, we've already seen Ahsoka talk to him, so we're definitely going to see probably Ahsoka come back in the Mandalorian universe again.
And we'll probably see more of that interconnectedness deepen, but I think they've done what they need to in Mando to really set forward Skeleton Crew as well as Ahsoka to go off and have their own spinoffs of things. And I've seen a lot of people too draw the inspiration that some of the stuff that are probably going to be in season 4 of Mando is going to be inspired by what the Rangers of the New Republic TV show was going to be. Because that was supposed to follow Cara Dune and her efforts to more like unify the Outer Rim and protect the Outer Rim because that was her station. But all of the controversies with her really like scrapped that whole project. But I can totally see more of those like story beats take effect in here, because I think Mandalorian is the person to go to really pull off a protection of the Outer Rim as well as like more exploration of what's out there. And the pirates probably going to be more of a focus.
Yeah.
We actually do. I think we see pirates in Skeleton Crew. If I remember correctly from the trailer that we saw, the pirates are in Skeleton Crew.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And we'll probably see more of them throughout the Outer Rim, because I think that's obviously we've got the warlords of the Empire, like the Shadow Empire. Yeah. And they'll be there for sure.
It's really interesting to think of the Dins. Because the more I think about it, the more I'm realizing that Din Djarin, first of all, is just this incredible leader, really.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But by
the mediator.
But by being the Mandalorian, it's kind of the irony of him, like wherever he goes, he seems to bring people together. And even though he's not the one that stays, he makes these like units, like he's brought together.
Well, even like Cobb Vanth on Tatooine.
Yeah, I mean,
and pairing them with the Sand People. Like that was pretty big.
Yeah.
And then you see that when he goes on to Navarro with them, like in their new like political system.
And then him and the Mandalorians.
Yeah, him and the
them
Mandalorians. Like, he's
on
the
the
linchpin of all of these different groups. That's
Yeah.
such a good point. Even the New Republic, like, he's making those connections with the Rangers. So that's going to be another step. Like, he's totally like, he's the
like,
king of networking.
Yeah. He's like this ultimate glue, even though he ends up just being able to step away somehow.
Yeah.
Like
Tatooine as well, with his like little crazy
and Boba
haired
Fett
lady.
too.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, something about this guy. He just brings communities together.
Yeah.
Him and Grogu.
It's so fun. I think there's so much that they can play around with, and the fact that they do have a movie that's going to cap it all together, I think is a lot. So we have a lot in this new wave, a new era that will probably also build up to what we see in the sequel trilogy and maybe have repercussions to what we see with Rey's movie. There's a lot going on here. But let us know your thoughts in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube, or hey, contact@uplinkpodcast.com is the email to use to reach out to us. We're also on Instagram @StarWarsUplink and on Twitter @StarWarsUplink. Check us out there. Let us know your feedback. You can listen to the podcast wherever you find podcasts and watch the videos on YouTube. We have a lot of we've been breaking down all of the Mando episodes on our YouTube channel and trying to bring some really fun deep dives as we get more pieces of Star Wars. So definitely check us out there. Subscribe, like, comment, do all the things. Thanks for listening. And as always, may the Force be with you.